There's been a couple of pike around, actually quite a few pike to be honest. One or two bream and some big size shad.
Yeah, still quite a few snook and small kuta.
Durban Bay, lots of grunter. I think because the rain washed the stuff down the canals, there's been quite a few grunter chains.
So you want to plan carefully.
There you go, buddy. Hit now!
This is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green.
Hey, welcome back to another Angler News episode where it has been another interesting week. Now, you know what? We just came back out of the duck ponds and we were into some pretty challenging weather, and you would have thought it was going to be not much to report on. However, once again, KZN. It is where the fortune favors the bold. It's where perseverance was key and anglers were rewarded. And the species they were rewarded with were some massive shad, some huge queenfish, kuta, snook, dorado were on the bites on the offshore side. We were talking about a ridiculous amount of cob up on the north coast, as well as some sharks off Durban and a lot of bream on the bite down the south coast. So, you know what? The Alps were saying one thing, the anglers said something else. The anglers said, we are getting out there and we are going to get into the fish. It wasn't just them that's getting onto the fish. It's our Angler News reporters that are getting onto the reports. And I was super eager to tell you exactly what's been going on. So we're going to get into it. But before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Kingfisher.
The Kingfisher are the leading fishing tackle specialist. We stock gear for every facet of fishing, from carp to kuta, marlin to trout. Basically, everything. We have stores across KZN, from Toti to Salt Rock, Durban to Pietermaritzburg. You can also find us online at kingfisher.co.za.
Thank you, the Kingfisher. Now, guys, the Kingfisher is not only the guys that bring us the news, that brings us the podcast, they are also the ones with some amazing campaigns. And those campaigns kicks off again next week. There is a massive one. I've got a sneak peek of it. I cannot tell you anything about it as yet. All I can tell you is look out for their socials, go onto their socials and look out what's coming up from them. It is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. We will tell you more next week. But if you want to be the first to hear about it, well, from next Monday, go and check out their Kingfisher Facebook or Instagram pages. Now, let's get into the news. Let's kick it off in my hometown with Mike V and Brad Krobler.
How's it, guys? For the week that went past, quite a few grey sharks around in our beaches. A lot of spinners and some milkies as well, troubling the guys. Some nice fish on live bait. Quite a few GTs were caught on the south coast. One or two nice ones up on the north coast. There was a couple springer caught on some chocker baits. Quite a few grunters and stumpies caught on the south coast by Umkom. They've popped up there at Umkom, so the fishing has been very good on that side. On our Durban North beaches, it's been a little bit on the quiet side. Quite a few greys eating, one or two spinners, milky in the mix there. But yeah, not too much on our beaches. The water's been very, very warm. A little bit further north, when the water cooled a bit, there was quite a few sandies caught, some browns, things like that. Otherwise, it's been mainly the deeper points that have been throwing up all the fish. On the paddle ski and ski boat side, the guys are getting quite a few good-sized snook, up to about 8 or 9 kilos. There's been quite a few kuta around, some very big ones in the mix there as well. One or two yellowtail and ambers on the bottom. Guys still giving the rock cod and slingers and things like that in the mix. Yeah, but it's been mainly about the pelagics, the tuna, a couple salies in the mix there as well. Durban Bay, lots of grunter. Most of them undersized, but a lot of them have been eating. It's, I think, because the rains washed the stuff down the canals. So there's been quite a few grunter trying. The kingies have been on the charge as well. A lot of juvenile kingies in the mix, some very nice ones as well. Springer have been 1-1 in the bay, but they will come. Guys, have a great time. This is Mike B for NSA News.
It's Brad here from Liski Fishing Charters. Guys, the fishing report for the ski boat over the Durban area for the last week. Guys, we had some pretty much shocking weather over the last weekend, but yeah, things did get better over this week. Yeah, still quite a few snook and small kuta off the Blue Lagoon, Glen Ashley, all the way to as far as the view went. Still a lot of fun to go catch them. There were still a couple of dorado around, not in the buses, but if you went and looked for them, they were there. Bottom fishing has been pretty much on average, up and down, some really good
soldiers and some nice rock crops that have been coming out. But yeah, guys, this is Brad for Agri South Africa and Guys Pipelines, and speak to you guys all next week.
Well, thank you, Mike and Brad. So, yes, challenging weather, but anglers rewarded with the fish. Nothing wrong with that. It's all about that perseverance. It's about consistency. It's about fighting the elements to get out there and get your fix. And once again, hopefully getting rewarded. So it certainly seems as though the guys were rewarded in my backyard. Now, what about the North Coast? Well, I've listened to Michaela's report just now, and trust me, I was so eager to play this out for you because there are so much of fish coming out on the North Coast. She's had her ears to the ground, her fingers on her phone the entire time, finding out what's going on. It's been absolutely brilliant. The anglers once again were rewarded. This is exactly what's come out from the North Coast.
What's up, everyone? This is Michaela from Durban, reporting for Angler News SA. What another fantastic week of fishing we've had, with some absolute prize fishers coming out. Starting off with Blue Lagoon, there's been some lovely sized stumpies coming out off the North Bank, while there's still a few grunter and shad coming out off the bricks in the early mornings and late afternoon. Moving along to Beechwood, there's still been a couple of shad coming out in the late afternoons, but it's mainly still been producing lots of inedibles. Moving up to Virginia, there's still some pompano coming out in the early mornings and a couple of shad here and there, while for our Mhlanga anglers, the shad is still coming out as well as the usual sharks and rays. For Mhloti, the shad has still been a bit quiet, but there's been plenty of scratching species coming out, while for the offshore side of things, Durban is still producing a few snook and a couple of kuta, while the deep has been firing with yellowfin tuna. For the bottoms, there's been some lovely rockcod, reds and half cobs coming out, while for Mhloti, however, there's been snook and kuta in the shallower bait marks, while the deep is producing some big yellowfin tuna, wahoo, and a couple of dorado. While for the bottoms, the guys are still getting into some lovely rockcod, cob, and a few yellowtail. Moving right up the coast to Belito, there's been some monster-sized shad coming out, while St. Lucia has been producing some lovely GE stumps and a few rays. For the offshore side, Belito saw lots of snook, kuta, and a few yellowfin tuna coming out over the past week, while the bottoms produced some lovely-sized cob, rockcod, and yellowtail. And lastly, for St. Lucia, there's been some lovely-sized snook, a few sailfish, and some kuta coming out. That's going to be it from me for this week, guys. Tight lines, and have a great one.
Oh, Michaela, you absolute legend. You certainly got us inspired. So, you know what? Last week we were looking at that weather and thinking, yeah, we know those seas were big. There was a lot of undercurrent. Should we go? Should we not go? And, the guys that did go out were like bragging about it all weekend. And Michaela was so in tune with them. She was out there as well. She was getting some fish, a beautiful tuna. Well done on her personal best with that. So that's what's happening on your offshore. That's what's happening on the North Coast. What about the Midlands? Well, let's find out from Jan.
Hey there, guys. So the cooler weather of this week is perhaps a bit more fitting from the phrase from one extreme to the next that we mentioned last week, as there was probably around about 20 plus degree change from the daytime temperatures from about 10 days ago. That being said, the sudden cool snap is most welcome, and while there's some warmer weather still in the forecast for the week ahead, temperatures generally appear to be on the downslope, and a good sign that autumn has its foot firmly in the door. The longer, cooler nights should have water temperatures dropping as well, and hopefully get the fish waking up from their summer slumbers. And even though the rains have slacked off somewhat into single figures, it was still enough to push Midmar Dam back over the wall for a few days earlier this week. But with the water table well up from the previous heavy pours, river levels are still rather high. In short, the waiting game still continues, but with high hopes and, of course, bated breath. There were a few in Natal Fly Fishers Club river anglers that ventured out onto the rivers over the last week, while returns from the Bushmans and Umgeni Rivers NFFC beats both reported fish. Notes indicated that there had been significant water through the systems, with the high tide mark well above current levels, which are still reported as being above normal. The Bushmans yielded some fish up into the 11 to 13 inch, that is 28 to 33 centimeter brackets, while the Umgeni gave up a few fish in the 7 to 9 inch, that is 18 to 23 centimeter range. Of interest on the Bushmans, the fish initially showed some interest in a large size hopper drifted in the eddies and slacker water, while for the remainder it was either fishing a hopper dropper or heavy nymphing. With some little rain in the single figure range expected over the next week, we can look forward to rivers and streams dropping some and conditions improving. The best time should be starting just around about now. Only a single return from the NFFC Stillwater anglers, and with a quote, no lunkers found, and water temperature reported as quote unquote warm, but there were still a number of 9 to 11 inch, that is 23 to 28 centimeter rainbows, that gave the angler's rod a bend. A fish is a fish, they say, and more than a couple is happiness. Where Albert Falls was once upon a time considered to be the best water in the country, all suggestions for fishing for bass these days point to Midmar Dam. Recent word from Albert's reported not a bite in 3 outings, and spent 3 days there and bagged 2 fish. Whereas reports from Midmar are a lot more encouraging. Bass are actively feeding on bluegill, and you will catch a lot of 300-gram fish, but between them, there are some decent fish. Sterkfontein Dam is reported to be on fire again after some recent wind, squalls, and much-needed rain. Dry fly is the name of game in this sight fishing paradise, with hopper and cricket patterns and beetles being the top producing favorites. Rain will bring out the flying ants and termites, so have some large wing patterns on hand to match the hatch. Do stop in at the Kingfisher Pietermaritzburg for the best in tackle advice. And this is Jan Korabel reporting for Kingfisher Pietermaritzburg and Angler News South Africa.
Oh, Jan, thank you so much for that. What a great, honest report about exactly what's been going on. Now, I got to admit, Albert Falls is my ground for that bass, but this is what we love about the Angler News reports. Now I know, head to Midmar. Okay. All right. By the way, Jan, thank you so much for those tips on finding those patterns, like what patterns we would be using for those trout and yellowfish species. All right, so that's the Midlands. Now let's head on back down to the coast. We're going to go to Ray Thompson, where he's not feeling too positive. However, some fish on the bite.
Due to the seas and the weather conditions that we've had over the last couple of days, it has been extremely quiet. Apart from a few cob caught, there is very little bit to report about. There was 1 or 2 small grey sharks caught at Warner's, and 1 at Inyoni Rocks. Fortunately, this weather will change. Looking forward is all northeasterlies leading into Saturday morning with a big cold front coming and big seas. So if you're going to go out there, go and fish the Lovo in Warner's area, and hopefully you'll catch yourself a lovely sandy, diamond, or honeycomb. And again, as far as edibles go, there's only rockfish around. Again, stone bream being the most prolific, with quite a few little blacktail being caught down towards Scotty's area. Enjoy your weekend, guys.
All right, Ray. So it started off negative, ended off positive. I love it, because now we're going to go into some positive news despite those challenging conditions. It is with Adam, with what's been going on down the south coast. And you know what? There are still some fish on the bite. Like I said, despite those challenges, these guys are fishing in some really brown water, and they're still finding that non-eds. They're still finding the eds. There's still the bream coming out of Margate. The south coast. You got to love it. Here's Adam's full report of what's been going on.
Hey, Banesh, I hope you're doing well, my friend. Everyone tuning into the Angler News podcast has had a beautiful week so far. It's been a little bit topsy-turvy, up and down, mixed bag down on the south coast, Banesh, in terms of the fishing. Unfortunately, the weather has just not been playing its part. But the days that it has, the guys that have gone out fishing have been getting themselves some beautiful non-heads. We've definitely had some hounds, sandies, greys, dusky sharks, a couple of eagles, a few small diamonds, almost dinner plate sized diamonds. So yeah, it's there to be had. In terms of the edibles, there's been a couple of pike around, actually quite a few pike, to be honest. Quite a few that I've seen in a long time. 1 or 2 bream and some big size shad. Not a lot of them, but a couple of big size shad, Vinesh. So yes, edible fish and non-eds. In terms of the sort of bass side of things, it's been okay. It's been here or there. Nothing to write home about. Deep sea side of things, the guys are getting some good tuna. There's a couple of snook around, a couple of dollars around. So yeah, fishing is still happening on the south coast. It's definitely not gone dead. So don't think just because the south coast has had a bit of bad weather, there's a bit of brown water, that things are swat finished as they were last week. Because as we know, things can change at the drop of a hat. Whether it be 3 days of east and a west for the non-eds, the west cleans up the ocean. Next minute, the edibles are biting. So guys, it is the south coast. It is fishing and not catching. The best bait is the bait that's in the water. Otherwise, guys, stay safe, tight lines, and let's see those catches.
Thank you, Mr. Positive Adam. There's always something positive out of the South Coast. That's what I love about your reports, and it's always a great way to round off the show. All right, so guys, here's what's going on, right? I mean, we know we've got some challenging conditions, like we've heard from the reporters. There's still some fish despite these conditions. So we've got Friday afternoon, we've got Saturday morning. Now, there is going to be some wind, there's going to be some rain throughout the weekend. However, there are windows that are fishable. So you want to plan carefully, you want to be very strategic strategic with your fishing this weekend. You want to get as much information as you can. Well done on this being one of the first starts to get that done. Now it's a matter of getting out there and conquering the challenges. Going out this weekend to show that I am an angler that despite the challenging elements that are in front of me, I will still persevere and I will still get those rods bending. So with that being said, guys, until the next one.
This is the Angler News SA podcast. I'm Vanessa Green. Find more episodes at ecr.co.za under podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Let's fish for the future.